Now, there is a growing trend, and I wonder if you've heard it or you've done it. Have you unretired? 133693. Exactly what is it? But I guess from my point of view, I'm wondering, have you ever started a new career later in life, and how did it work out for you? 133693. Sue Allison is a career expert. Sue, good afternoon to you.
Hi, Jackie. How's it going?
Good. So what does unretiring mean? Is it exactly what the name suggests?
Yes, basically, either people go back to the workplace or they decide they're not going to leave it.
Okay, so then what do you think for people when they get to a certain age, I guess, and they decide to go back in the workforce? What is it suggesting? Does it work out for them? Does it not? Why do they do it?
Well, I think it falls down to a lot of different reasons for different people. The interesting statistic from the Australian Bureau of Statistics about the average age of retirement is actually 56.3 in Australia. And I don't know about you, but I've always thought retiring was for over 65s. The pension won't come in until you're 67. So there's either a lot of people self-funded up until that age, or they must still be working at some level. But the other thing that I've noticed is a lot of people find, well, they clean the oven, they sort out the photos, update their garage, whatever, go on a holiday, and then what? I mean, life get there. What else do you do with your life?
I'd love, Sue, just to clean up my garage.
See, it's been on my list for a long time too.
Do you think people need fulfillment, and when they're not working, they don't feel as fulfilled?
I think we get a lot of our social interaction and engagement from work. Back in the day, you might have had a much more regimented regime with family and friends and weekly activities that you would do. But as we get older, some of those things sort of fall by the wayside. And a lot of our social needs, and we're all social animals, do get met at work. But also the intellectual challenge and the variety. And back to your point about changing careers, I was listening to a podcast recently, and it was actually saying that if you're in a job and it doesn't provide a continuous challenge, you'll actually get sick of it and move on. So the same kind of thing is going to apply as why you would leave a job. There's lots of different reasons, and there's plenty of opportunity out there. The job mobility rate in Australia is also the highest it's been in a decade, so it's 9.5% at the moment. But if you get to the over 65 category, it's only 2.1%. So those people don't actually change jobs very often. But if you imagine those younger people changing jobs all the time, a lot of employers are grateful for somebody older coming back into the workplace because they know they're not going to leave in 5 minutes.
I once had an old boss tell me he loved employing mothers because they worked harder to get their stuff done. You know, they were really efficient with their time because they needed to get back to their kids, and he thought that they were very productive. But another thing that interests me, Sue, is this younger generation, and I'd love to know from our listeners too, that they don't so much, we were always brought up that you were lucky to have a job and you worked very hard and you should be grateful for the opportunity. But nowadays, younger people feel like, well, you're lucky to have me in many ways. And you see it on TikTok all the time and on social media that they might do a job for a little while and they put strict parameters around what they'll accept in the workplace in terms of how many hours they'll work, what their deal breakers are to accepting a job. Have you noticed that as well?
Oh, definitely. There's lots of that micro learning that happens on social media, and those messages are put out in very seductive ways. And of course, people spend so many hours per day on the social media devices. Naturally, they're going to hear about it. But I think there's another discrepancy here in that employers will spend money on training a younger person how to do a job, but they won't spend a similar budget on training an older person. And there's a really big shortfall in that area, because if you imagine if an older person didn't have some technology skills, then they could easily get those with a little bit of training. And I often use the expression, you can teach an old dog new tricks, just one trick at a time. but the other component of that is an older person will have learnt the theory behind how to do something. So let's say they're a carpenter, they've got to cut a hole, measure twice, cut once. And yet the young person will say, yeah, I've seen that on a video, I'll do it. And then they've done it wrong, and then they've got to go back to the shop and buy another piece of wood and so on and so forth. So if you think about, yes, a younger person could do something quicker, but they don't have that wisdom and experience. So in terms of employers being able to get these people back in, I think they're really good people. The only thing that the younger workers have worked out is this concept of flexibility, and they're really good at that.
I'm fascinated by this, Sue.
Yes, and I think I would love to see employers offering more flexible opportunities for older workers, because there's a friend of mine who is a car mechanic and he's nearly 60 and he can't find a younger worker to work for him. And I said, why don't you just get two old blokes to come back in 2 days a week and you'll get the job done.
I think I'd love to know from our listeners, 133693, do you employ younger workers? I actually have two younger women who work for me. I've never seen two women work harder I adore them. I love young women. I love their work ethic. But you do hear about younger people wanting, they want their 2 or 3 days working from home. They want the flexibility to choose how they work, when they work. And employers now, that push to get them back to the office, well, they're just not having it, are they? They'll go find another job where they can work from home, Sue.
It is a deal breaker in most situations now, but if you have the right systems in place and a level of trust, it can absolutely work, whether that person is younger or older. And back to your point before about a mother being organised, I remember before I had children, I thought I was efficient, but after you realise what's important and what's urgent, right? So urgent, the baby's screaming, it's got a dirty nappy, you've got to do it. Dusting could probably wait. So, it's the same kind of philosophy in the workplace. And having a mixed age group, in my view, is the best of both worlds, and having an environment that suits all ages. And there's actually a number of government incentives and programs to help small businesses fund older people coming back into the workplace as well. There's little tests that they can do to make sure they're age friendly. So there's lots of ways to make all of this work.
Sue Elson is a career expert. Sue, lovely to chat. Thanks for talking to me this afternoon.
Thanks, Jackie.
We are talking